Ladies and gentlemen, I've been gone for 2 weeks. You're probably wondering, where the hell has this clown been? You know, the market's moving, Bitcoin's past 100K, and I'm off there in the Vietnamese jungle messing around on a motorbike on the Haijiang Loop. It's a bit of an interesting and awkward timing to go away, but I'm back. So rest assured, I am back. And rest assured, although it looks like a lot's happened, not really too much has happened for Bitcoin on a macro scale. Lots happened for altcoins. And we'll do an altcoin video later in the day, potentially tomorrow, but maybe even later in the day, and we'll discuss that. That's a very interesting space right now. Bitcoin, more or less, hasn't done too much, but we're going to get into what it has done. We're going to get into where Bitcoin can go, okay, in terms of how low can it go while remaining healthy. We're going to get into, the top targets for Bitcoin, what indicators we need to be looking at to see if Bitcoin has topped out, and those indicators right now suggest that Bitcoin has not topped out yet, so there is more room to move. In fact, probably plenty more room to move. And we'll do a short-term analysis on Bitcoin as well to try and decipher what's going on in the short term, which has been a bit of a mess for the last 3 weeks, basically. So just a broad update, just catching you up to where we are. Last 2 weeks I have been absent, so just bringing you up to speed here. But overall, looking into some charts we've looked at before and some fresh ones as well. And lastly, guys, for goodness sakes, go leave a bloody comment down below. I really appreciate it. It takes 10 seconds of your time. Say hello, say thank you, leave an emoji. Appreciate it, helps me out in the algorithm. And we'll get into a few things before we start the video here. Those things are the two exchanges which I'm looking at today, Bitunix and BitGet. We're bringing BitGet back to the channel. You cannot access BitGet from the USA. So if you are from the USA, go with Bitunix. It's a global non-KYC exchange. Bitunix is KYC now, which means no USA access. But if you are from anywhere else but the USA, you can consider BitGet. Very reputable exchange, very well known. Both of these exchanges have very good histories in regards to hacks, and they have reserves information available. So if you are hacked on these exchanges, you can have an opportunity to get your funds back via the reserves and via the protection funds they have available there. Very low in trading fees, 15% trading fee discounts with my referral links down below. If you sign up to these exchanges, you will get those 15% trading fee discounts. Go ahead and do that. Takes 15 seconds. Can't go wrong, guys. Let's get into the content. I'll also mention VIP just very briefly here. If you want VIP, guys, VIP trading signals 4 times a week. I post them, altcoin trading signals with entry, stop, loss, take profit. It's all there on VIP. Check that out if you're interested. Let's get into the content properly this time. So we know that Bitcoin moves cyclically, and we know, hence, we can compare it to the last cycle. So right now, what we've seen is Bitcoin breaking above its prior bull run all-time high, or that vague price region. And it's currently on the first leg above its bull run all-time high. Now, this is marked out in red right here, and the relative stage from last cycle is marked out in red as well. What we can notice is that upon the top of that first stage, or upon nearing the top of that first leg, that is when Bitcoin dominance started to fall off massively. So that's when altcoin season started to begin. We've already seen that start to occur. So what we're seeing right now on Bitcoin, the reason why Bitcoin hasn't done much in 2 weeks, basically, more or less, is because the market's attention, the attention of retail, the attention of everyone in the market basically, is actually gradually shifting from Bitcoin to altcoins. People are more focused on altcoins right now than they are Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin's still at the forefront of people's attention, and Bitcoin still moves the market. It's just not as influential as it was, say, a month ago. Bitcoin dominance is rapidly dropping. That is the stage of the cycle we're at, quite simply. And look, the correction hasn't started. We do expect a correction after this leg, of course, as we did last cycle. That correction has not started yet, but it would not surprise me if it starts in this vague price region, given the fact that Bitcoin dominance has already started tanking and has been doing so for about 2 weeks. So upon, learning about, Bitcoin, pretty much expecting a correction somewhere here, it's hard to say exactly where it is, the questions emerge, well, how low can Bitcoin go on that correction while remaining healthy? And another question emerges, could that correction be the top? Now, the answer to both those questions I'll give you now. How low can Bitcoin go? Well, that's a relatively easy one to answer, because all we need to look at is the macro support zones. We can look at indicators like the Gaussian channel. We can look at indicators like bull market support band. But realistically, if we want to keep it very simple, all we really need to do is look at the last prior major macro resistance, which was at about 74,000 to around 69,000, and say, okay, that's our macro support zone. If we drop below that, we flip below a critical support level and enter a bear market, very simply put. So if Bitcoin dropped below 69,000 or even 74,000, we get very, very, very concerned about the structure of the charts and start to think that this is a confirmed bear market. Now, if we're above 74,000, guess what? We're all good, pretty much. On macro, nothing's really changed, and we're fine completely. Now, you might be thinking, oh, that's a long way to wait. It's really not, though, if you think about it from a macro scale, because if we're talking about, a correction from 104,000 to 74,000, we're only really talking about a correction spanning about 29 or 28%, which is a very typical correction in a bull market. If we zoom into the relative zone of where we are right now from the last cycle, we saw a correction in excess of 30%. It was a 32% correction, I believe, if I measured it correctly. So look, that's not unheard of. If Bitcoin was to go down to 74,000, yes, it would be brutal. Yes, everything would get destroyed. Altcoins would actually hold up surprisingly well. I would assume they would hold up surprisingly well, at least. But Bitcoin would get wrecked, that's for sure. But it wouldn't be the end of the world. So realistically, Bitcoin does have a lot of breathing room here. If we did see a correction from this price region, it wouldn't be the end of the world. It would be expected, actually. If we went down to 74,000, that's definitely the lower end of where we'd feel comfortable of it going, but it, again, still wouldn't destroy the market. So a lot of breathing room here on Bitcoin. There is, I guess, a macro expectation of a correction somewhere around here. It's very hard to say where it is. We could go higher first. There's no specific, we look at the macro scale, we look at the cyclical trends. There's no real number it gives us. It just tells us the structure. And the structure is parabolic leg after the break of all-time high and then correction somewhere up, right? So it's hard to say where it is. Another thing we can look at for a kind of sell point, if we do end up going lower than the market expects, if we do end up breaking into a bear market, which again I see as the unlikely scenario, very unlikely, but we need to be aware of it in case it does happen, is looking at the total cryptocurrency market cap. If we look at that parabolic leg on the total cryptocurrency market cap, again, it broke all-time highs. It entered a parabolic leg. We saw a correction from that parabolic leg. The correction notably did not go below the prior all-time high. So if this correction, which we could see here or could see a little bit higher, goes below the vague all-time high region from 2021 and also here from 2024, that's when we can start to get very concerned. But until that happens, we've got breathing room. So to summarize that segment of the video, correction could very well happen here or maybe a little bit higher. If it does, we've got plenty of breathing room. There's nothing really to be concerned about at the moment. No pressing issues here for Bitcoin, just normal cyclical price action. And then another question emerges, well, how high can Bitcoin go in this bull market? Now, we can bring up price targets, and we've done that in the past. A lot of the price targets suggest around 130 to 150,000. Perhaps that's a little too conservative. Maybe it goes higher than that. It's very hard to say. But what we can do is look at actually plain blanket top indicators. If these top indicators have not triggered, it's pretty, good data to say that Bitcoin has not topped out yet. Now, some of them are to do with the RSI and the 2-week chart and on the monthly chart. We can look at the 2-week chart RSI. We can see a very clear descending resistance line marking tops historically speaking. We are not at that resistance yet. And that resistance is downtrending, which means eventually it will break to the upside. Potentially it breaks to the upside this cycle. Fact of the matter is we haven't topped out yet according to the 2-week. And we also haven't topped out according to the 1 month, which is even more reliable than the 2-week. If we drew it correctly here, let's go ahead and do that. Again, still plenty of breathing room before we get to an actual top indicator point. And even then we could break that level given it's a descending resistance line. So we've just got plenty of room to move according to top indicators. Another top indicator would be the 4-year cycle itself, which suggests a top in late 2025. Of course, it's late 2024. So the 4-year cycle is saying we've got like 10 months left to run. So no real pressing concerns there. And then we look at something like the power law chart on Bitcoin. And we know this chart, historically speaking, has been very, very accurate, marking tops pretty much perfectly except for 2021. Right now we are at the green level of resistance, which is a bit of a point of concern. But we are looking like we're breaking above that level. And given all the other cyclical metrics, it looks like we will break above that level eventually. So if we're looking at the larger purple level, we're ages away from that. I don't think we'll reach that personally. I think that's way too high. I do not think Bitcoin's going to 400K this cycle. I think that's ridiculously optimistic. I'd be surprised if Bitcoin breaks 200,000, quite frankly. But the fact of the matter is, even by an indicator like that, we're not really anywhere near the top. So the breathing room Bitcoin has to the upside and to the downside here is very significant. There's no pressing macro concerns here. And then we can shift our attention to the short term. Well, what does the short term say? And the fact of the matter is, guys, Bitcoin, I know it's been about above 100K a few times, but the fact of the matter is Bitcoin hasn't really broken 100K yet. All right, it's been above 100K for less than about 24 hours in total. And every time it's been above 100K, it's been insanely volatile. Yesterday, we saw the biggest liquidation event pretty much in, I don't know how much exactly, maybe months on Bitcoin, many months potentially, going all the way from 104,000 to 90,000, a 14,000 US dollar drop in a matter of pretty much less than a day, less than 12 hours, right? 13% drop. Most of that happening within 4 hours. So there's clearly a lot of tension in this price region of 100K, and to act like 100K is conquered is ridiculous. It's quite frankly not. We have not even seen a daily candle close above 100K. Maybe we'll see that today, maybe not. We haven't even seen a weekly candle above 100K. It's probably a better metric. And right now, Bitcoin in the short term is actually resembling a ascending channel formation, which you can see in yellow. The channel stemming backwards from here in August 1st. And you can see that channel very clearly depicted right here in the short term. And you can see on the 4-hourly chart RSI, a breakdown line forming on the 4-hourly chart RSI. If we break down from that level on the RSI, that will lead to a price chart breakdown, and that will trigger a confirmed correction, which could mark what we were talking about before, which is the correction from the first parabolic move that we saw in the last cycle. We could see that right here, okay? And then all the things we discussed at the start of the video in regards to how low Bitcoin could go become relevant. We can discuss those more. But as of right now, we haven't seen a short-term breakdown. I would not be surprised at all if we do see one, though. So don't get too ahead of yourself here. Just because Bitcoin's moved up heaps, it doesn't mean it's going to move up more in the immediate short term. We can see a correction here. Cyclically speaking, it would be perfectly expected. There would be no eyebrows raised if we did. But another thing to consider is that even if we do, the altcoin market's looking very strong. And it looks like altcoin season has begun. And we'll make a dedicated video on that later in the day, potentially tomorrow, to discuss what's going on with altcoins. So if you are in altcoins, you know, they're definitely not going to go upwards massively if we do see a Bitcoin correction. But the vast majority of the, you know, blood, the chaos should be contained within Bitcoin, as was the case in 2021. Now, that doesn't mean jump all into altcoins right now. You are actually late to the first initial leg there, so you might want to reconsider doing that, but it does mean that there is some breathing room for altcoins. But again, dedicated video on that later. We'll discuss that more in due time here. Something I'm watching quite closely on Bitcoin is the daily chart RSI. If we look at the daily chart RSI in relation to the daily chart price chart, you can see these red circles represent tops and the green circles represent bottoms, and they are relative to where Bitcoin has touched the RSI, sorry, is touched in this triangle formation. So when we touch the top of the triangle on the RSI, we see price chart tops. When we touch the bottom of the triangle on the RSI, we see price chart bottoms. And right now we're kind of in between. So we do have something to watch here. If Bitcoin does go downwards, we're watching the bottom of that RSI triangle. And if it does go upwards, we're watching the top of that RSI triangle as a potential short-term / medium-term top and bottom. It's been perfect so far on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 occasions. And until it breaks, there's no reason to believe it won't be perfect again. So that's something I'll be watching closely. If Bitcoin does go up or down, either way, it's going to be useful. So a very broad video today. As you've noticed, I've covered many, many topics. That's just because I want to get you back up to speed with what's going on in the market. As you can see as well, if you remember my last video, not really too much changing here on Bitcoin. Just a lot of breathing room to the upside, a lot of breathing room to the downside. A correction around this price region would make sense. It's not guaranteed, but it certainly would make sense. We'll get confirmation if the short-term chart actually does break down. And overall, the market's looking quite good. Attention is shifting from Bitcoin to altcoins, which is a telltale sign of 4-year cycle playing out as expected. And at the moment, we have really no data to suggest anything but that is true. The 4-year cycle is playing out as expected at this point in time. And obviously, we're keeping our eyes peeled in case something changes there. But at the moment, market's looking good, guys. Simple as that. So thank you for watching. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Specifically, leave a comment. It really helps me out in the algorithm. It takes 20 seconds of your time. Just chuck an emoji down there. Chuck a hello, whatever you want. A thank you. I really appreciate that. Go again and check out the exchanges, Bittunix and BitGet. 15% trading fee discounts with my referral link down below. Bittunix is global. BitGet is global except for the USA. Take your picks. Very good exchanges, historically speaking. And the last thing I'll mention is the VIP group on Telegram. If you're interested in getting altcoin trading plans posted by myself on Telegram 4 times a week with a 78% win rate, that's where you can do it, guys. So go ahead and bloody do it. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll catch you soon.